Chair, I can confirm you're live on YouTube.
Thank you for attending today's meeting of the Kings Lynn Area Committee. The Democratic Services Officer will now conduct a roll call check to check who is present at the meeting. When she calls out your name, could you please switch your microphone on and confirm your attendance by answering present?
Thank you. Councillor Bone?
Present.
Councillor Collop?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Colwell?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Everett?
Present.
Councillor Fry?
Present.
Councillor Hennigan?
Present.
Councillor Jones?
Present.
Councillor Joyce? No. Councillor Kemp?
Present.
Councillor Rust?
Present.
Councillor Sayers? And Councillor Ware?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have the following officers present in the meeting. So we've got Mark Whitmore, Gemma Curtis, Connor Smalls on Zoom.
No.
No.
That's it.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And for item 8, we have Michelle Gant and Vicky Everidge. Please may I remind members that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live via YouTube. By attending this meeting, you are given your permission to be recorded and streamed. So item number 1, apologies for absence. I currently have councillors Moore and Lowe.
And we also have Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Any other apologies?
I've got Councillor Sayers writing something to me on WhatsApp, but he hasn't sent the message yet. I'm presuming it. I don't know if he's late or what, but he might turn up. There might be an apology there.
Thank you. Okay. So item number 2, minutes of the previous meetings. So can we ask the committee that was present at the last meeting if they're happy with the minutes of the previous meeting is a correct record?
No.
Do any members here have any interest to declare? No, brilliant. Urgent business.
Sorry,
Sorry.
do I need to declare that I'm on the neighbourhood board? Yeah.
Thank you. Urgent business, I have none. Members present under Standing Order 34, none. Correspondence, I have none. So we're on to the parish partnership reminder. So it's just a reminder to the committee that the parish partnership scheme is opened at the end of June, beginning of July. So it's for the following schemes. So vehicle activated signs, speed awareness signs, 20-mile-an-hour signs with flashing warning lights outside schools. Can also use it for school keep clear markings, a trod footway, bus shelters, village gateways and EV charging points. So business cases need to be submitted to CLAC by the 13th of November. And then the deadline for submission of bids is 1st of November. Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I was successful in an application the last time round, and I'm just a little bit concerned that they did put a deadline for the works to start, and we did pledge that the applications that we put forward would be funded by CLAC, and I'm just don't want to miss the boat, and it doesn't come through. Is there any guidance of when the likelihood or how that process happens, Mark?
I'll be honest, I've not had any requests for the match funding come across my desk. I think we'll take that away and have a look. But maybe if Councillor Bone, you can follow up with from your side as well, see where that is. I agree. We don't want to lose out because we haven't match funded it. So the money's there.
Councillor Rust.
Thank you. I too was successful in getting a bus shelter or funding for a bus shelter. And while I've been in communication about it, it too has yet to materialise. So, yeah, and I have been in communication with NCC Highways about it, and they've been out and measured it up.
Councillor Hannigan?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having difficulty finding the list of things that can be used. Can you tell me, do cycle racks come in under that at all? No? Okay, right.
I'm not sure off the top of my
Oh,
head.
wow.
I don't think they do. We'll arrange to have the link to the county website page.
I have
So-
seen it somewhere, I just.
Yeah,
can't
it's on
find
Norfolk
it,
County
yeah.
Council's website because it's their scheme.
That list is from the Norfolk County Council. So unless it's not, if it's not included in there, then I would be surprised if it is.
Okay, right.
So item 8, plan for neighbourhoods. So if I could get, who's going to present that one? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, or afternoon. I'm joined today with Michelle Gant, who's from Engaging People, who we've worked with over a number of years, supporting our communications engagements around our regeneration programmes, and Vicky Etheridge, who's the chair of the Kings Lynn Neighbourhood Board, and also bid manager, which I'm sure most of you know, Vicky. So today what we really wanted to do is to give you an update on the new guidance that we've received from government on the Plan for Neighbourhoods programme. If you recall, we came to see you last year when the programme was called Long-Term Plan for Towns, and we had a bit of a workshop session, which was really good, really helpful, and which was part of our wider engagement we did last year under the programme as it was designed at that point in time. Obviously, there was then an election, and the new government has reviewed the programme. Very fortunate that they've retained it in terms of the allocations to the towns that were previously identified by the previous government, but they've rebranded it essentially and are taking a slightly different focus to the approach of the programme to the previous government. So I'll give an overview of the objectives of the programme, what the prospectus from the government is asking places to do, and the opportunities, and we'll start to have a bit of discussion around our approach to consultation and engagement, which we would very much welcome the panel's, the committee's involvement in. How long have we got on this item? Have we? Oh, okay. I don't want to go on all evening, obviously, but I just want to know how quick I needed to run through this stuff to allow discussion. So next slide, please. I'm not sure who's driving the slides. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So yeah, this is what I've just covered in terms of what we plan to cover today. All of the information is available on the government website if you want in your own time to look at the prospectus, the guidance, and we had some further guidance last week. So things are being drip fed through government all the time at the moment since they've relaunched the programme in the spring budget. Next slide, please. So the prospectus that was announced in the spring budget very much aligns this programme with the government's objective around making sure that every place that they feel has been left behind over the years has this opportunity to be rejuvenated and supported through this programme. They have looked at, in particular, previous Labour government programmes that was delivered in the late 90s, early 2000s, which some of you may remember, around the New Deal, the Safer, Stronger Communities Fund programme, which actually Vicky was the programme manager for at the time. And very much looked at the learnings, what was achieved through those programmes, what were the real strengths on it, and are looking to reuse and replicate that through this new programme. The objective very much is around to fix the foundations of those places most left behind, with a particular emphasis, which is a shift to where we were under the town deal, around actually more local residents empowered in providing their input and involvement in the delivery of this programme. We are given a £20 million allocation from 2026, so over a 10-year period up until 2036, split 75% capital, 25% revenue, and that is evenly spread across the 10-year period. But what the funding mechanisms, the funding flexibilities that they've given us this time, which we haven't had before under previous programmes, is that we have the ability to roll over money. So if you wanted to not, you've got time to spend developing projects that maybe you want to keep rolling over your capital until your 4th or 5th year, where you've got a big capital project that you're looking to deliver, for example. So there's a lot more flexibility than what we had under previous programmes. Equally, you're not tied to a project under the programme. So some of you will know under the town deal, once we had confirmed to government which projects we wanted to do, then we had to stick to those. We weren't able to change projects. Whereas there will be more flexibilities to do that if the situation changes, priorities change, or if there's another way of funding a project comes along, we can repurpose this money to go towards another project. Next slide, please. So the objectives of this programme is set out across 3 themes, which is around thriving places, stronger communities, and taking back control. And hopefully, I think you would have had a copy of these slides. I think it's really worth digesting the detail underneath each of those objectives, because the titles can possibly be a little bit misleading in some respects, particularly around taking back control. This is really about giving people the best chance in life, whether it's enabling them to fulfil training and job opportunities, supporting entrepreneurship and things like that. So if you're going to read anything, I would really recommend getting familiar with these objectives. Now, the programme gives us the flexibility in terms of what we want to deliver. We don't have to hit all of these objectives. We can just focus on one if we want, and we can do a bit across all of them. But this is very much the parameters of what the programme aims to achieve. Next slide, please. So the first part of when the government announced the programme in spring, one of the first things we had to do was submit a governance return, which they provided us a boundary area where they felt was appropriate for the fund to be focused on. And the boundary area they provided us was covered all of the built up areas, which you can see highlighted on this plan. Now, the reason why I've particularly picked this plan is because the different colours are showing the levels of deprivation in Kings Lynn. And as you can see here, North Lynn, South Lynn, areas in the town centre are in the most deprived in the country. Whereas in stark contrast to the north and to the east of the town, where you've got South Wotton and North Wotton, parts of Refley are in the least deprived. So you can see a very stark contrast in the levels of deprivation across our town centre. And this programme is specifically designed to improve, particularly they want to see interventions that will help improve those levels of deprivation. So when we did our governance return, we narrowed our boundary, that we didn't actually include North and South Wotton in it, because we didn't feel that was where investment was needed to be prioritised, because you can quite clearly see where the deprivation levels need to be and when investment needs to be focused on. So I'll come back to that in a moment, but I just thought that this slide is really quite useful to see the stark contrast in terms of the challenges and the issues that we've got, and where where the investment could most benefit. Next slide, please. So under the programme last year, they only had 3 priority areas, which was around town centre regeneration and heritage, connectivity and safer communities. They've expanded the range of interventions that this programme can support quite considerably. There's 8 interventions that you can see there. So previous ones around safety and security, regeneration, high streets and transport are still there, but they've also added housing, work productivity and skills, community cohesion, health and wellbeing, safety and security, safety and security was already on there, and education opportunities. So what we can spend this money on now is much broader than it was previously, which is great in some respects because it gives us a whole range of different flexibility, but it also presents a challenge in terms of how we prioritise how this money is spent, because I'm sure under all of these themes, there's a whole host of projects and interventions that we'd all like to see happen. And believe it or not, as we know, 20 million doesn't actually go that far sometimes. So, but it's also important to recognise that actually some projects may hit 2 or 3 of those interventions. So there may be a project, for example, in the town centre that is also providing houses, also improving health and wellbeing within a certain area, and the safety and security within that area. So there are ways in which projects can hit a number of interventions. So the programme, in terms of the work we now have been asked to do by the government, next slide. We've submitted our governance return I mentioned, which set out the governance requirements to comply with government guidance. So this included each town establishing a neighbourhood board. Now, some of the 75 towns that have been allocated this programme already had town deal boards, like Kings Lynn, like Great Yarmouth, and there's some places in Lincolnshire as well that are in a similar position. So some of those 75 towns have already established boards and obviously have existing programmes running of a similar nature. Other places are starting from from ground zero. For example, Thetford, they haven't got no boards established, and so what we have done is repurposed our existing town board, which has been running since 2020, to now be the Kings Lynn Neighbourhood Board, which Vicky's here as chair of. But we recognise that over the course of the next year or so, we're going to have to transition some of the membership and how the board works to ensure we really bring on the emphasis of this new programme within the neighbourhood board remit. So we've repurposed what we've got, but there is a recognition that we need to transition and change over the course of the next year, and particularly which will be informed by our consultation and engagement that we plan to do. The money is allocated to us, but what they have asked us to do is to submit a regeneration plan, which is to set out our 10-year vision. It will need to contain all of the evidence around where the areas of need are. It will include all the consultation engagement where we can explain how the community has been involved in the development of the plan, where the community's priorities are in terms of investment, and how we plan to practical things around what's our governance arrangements and assurance arrangements in terms of how the money is managed and spent. That has to be submitted by the 28th of November. They've got an open window to do that. So from sometime, I think at the end of this month, up until the 28th of November, we can submit a regeneration plan. Alongside that, we have to submit a 4-year investment plan. So the funding will be allocated in 4-year tranches, even though it's a 10-year programme. So two lots of 4 years and a 2-year investment plan at the end. And all we need to submit within that 4-year investment plan is an indication of the interventions from the menu that's been provided from that list that I set out there, of the things that we plan to focus the investment on in 4 years. We can be specific about projects if we want to, but we don't. It is very much intended to be light touch. So some of you will remember from the town deal, we had to do very, very detailed Green Book compliant business cases, which had to be assessed and agreed by town board, borough council and government. This is a case of submitting our regeneration plan, submitting the investment plan. They will sign it off. They're not assessing it as such. They were just checking in terms of it covers everything that they're hoping to see. They may come back with a few queries, but there's no indication that it's not a pass or fail. we submit it, they check the robustness of it, and then we're away in terms of then starting to deliver the programme from in fullness from April next year. Next slide, please. Next one. So I've talked about that in a bit. I think that in a moment I'll hand over to Vicky specifically on the kind of the governance side of things. Next slide. So we do get some upfront capacity funding from the 20 million in this financial year. We had some last year, we had some this year. And that is directly there to support the development of the neighbourhood boards and the engagement to kind of start developing the projects, but also supporting the community in developing their priorities for the programme. We have, as a neighbourhood board, we've already agreed that we want to focus that capacity funding, obviously, on some further targeted consultation engagement. We are, acutely aware we had a consultation last year which covered, reached over 1,000 people, and it was very wide ranging, and we had a whole different. There's a full report that's published on the Vision Kings Lynn website explaining all of that. So we're conscious of not going back and saying and asking the same things again, because we don't want consultation fatigue. People could quite easily say, well, you only consulted with us last year, can't you? Why are you asking me to tell you again? So we're working with Michelle very closely in terms of doing a gap analysis about what consultation information that we've already got, what do we already know? And that's not just from our programmes that we're delivering, but it's also initiatives like the Sport England Place Expansion programme and the RISE project that's happening in North Lynn. Obviously the work on the Marmot. There's a whole range of other initiatives and programmes that are doing consultation engagement within our boundary area. We're gathering all of that and seeing what we've already got, and then we can target where we need to do further targeted engagement against the full scope of the programme. We've already agreed that so later item on the agenda is around the Kings Lynn Master Plan. There's a contribution from the capacity funding to support that work. There is also a priority around the riverfront area where we've de-scoped an element of the riverfront project from the town deal, but there's been very much a commitment to continue work on that, and certainly the riverfront, in terms of focusing further investment and regeneration of that area, came through really strongly last year as a priority. So we are, in earnest already continuing that work, which will be supported by the Plan for Neighbourhoods programme. And we also need to factor in kind of additional programme team resources and skills and investment into the community to help us over the next year to develop the plan. So that's our plan in terms of capacity funding. Next slide, please. This is the revised boundary that we are following dialogue with government. They didn't accept our proposal to exclude North and South Wootton. They've said they want to stick with the boundary that they gave us. They expect places to either request to have it expanded rather than not retracted. So while we interpreted the guidance that they wanted to focus the investment in the areas of most need, and therefore that was reflected in our boundary area, they said, no, we want you to either stick or expand and give us an explanation of why you'd want to expand it. But but it is still the neighbourhood board's decision around, where to target the funding within that boundary. So we're going back to the neighbourhood board at the end of June to agree that, and then we have to submit that to government again. Next slide, please. So I've already talked about this around what we need to do in terms of submission, and the next slide talks around our specific next steps, which I'm sure you're sick of me talking now. I think it'd be really useful if you're happy to, Chair. Vicky can talk a bit about a meeting that she had with the Minister last week. All of the 75 towns were invited to a meeting with Alex Norris about the programme. so she can give you a bit of an update on, you know, directly from what the government is telling us. And Michelle can explain what our initial thoughts are around engagement and how we'd really like your input and support with that. No, for me. Is that okay? And if I've said anything you want to expand on what I've kind of blurred out?
No, oops, sorry, Gemma, that's absolutely fine. Although I'm conscious you've had a lot of listening to do, so
Yeah.
I'd probably rather take questions, but really briefly from what I picked up last week, there was a great emphasis on funding being spent in the most deprived areas. So whilst we need to include North and South Wootton in our map, I would anticipate that not much money, if any, will be going that way, that we will need to be focusing on those areas. It was also very heavily emphasised, as I think Gemma's probably reflected, that this is about not just consulting, but really involving and residents in the areas that we've got the funding for in their vision, their aspirations for the future, and how we can use this funds to start to move, start to create and make those aspirations come to life. So I think what I'd say about governance is that I suspect this time next year, the board or the structures and way we're looking at overseeing the plan for neighbourhoods might well be quite different from what we've got now, but I haven't in my head got a vision as to what that might look like. I'm also really conscious that we'll be balancing two quite different funding programmes, so we'll need to, and we've also got an eye on devolution and LGR, so we'll want to kind of be a bit strategic, and we also want to make sure that we are really very much more than involving, working alongside with and supporting and enabling those communities to kind of, cheesy though it is, kind of bring their dreams to life. So I think there's quite a lot to do. And in my experience of, which is a long time ago now, the work we did with the Safe Stronger Communities Fund, it takes a lot of time and effort, as you'll appreciate, to enable people to be able to work on boards, or whether that's in a subgroup, or whether that's in the board itself. And I think if that's what we end up aspiring to do, then we need to make sure we put in the time and effort and support and resources to do that, which can be great, but it doesn't, you know, I just think we need to be conscious of that. So I don't know quite what governance and structures and things might look like, but I think there is probably quite an understanding and commitment that that's what we want to do. So yeah, I think that's what I'd want to say, but I'm really happy to take questions when the time is right, if I can.
Thank you very much for that one. I have got a few questions, but I'll let members in the room ask theirs first, because they might answer my questions. Councillor Bone, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Gemma and Vicky and Michelle. I have a question. You've kind of sort of answered it, and with the feature around about the makeup of the actual neighbourhood board. It feels like previous inclinations have been very business led, and obviously you've got the wider parameters which do have more social economical ones now. And I was just hoping that you've actually got community leaders, not necessarily members, but off the top of my head, someone like John Price in North Lynn would be an amazing contributor to that board. And how wide is it? Is it still very business focused? It seems quite a closed group, because we don't, and it's a real shame, but it's only now that you've come. Obviously our meetings are televised and we can follow what's going on. But it's reassuring that you've said that you'll be perhaps the makeup in a year's time. Could you reassure me that you've got some?
Oh, well, yeah, okay. I'll try to reassure you, Fran. I think, I mean, I think the neighbourhood board and the town board is very different to a council panel. It's not one of the same, so that is one of the reasons why. And there's lots of the work that I guess that we're doing with that board is partly why, you know, things aren't televised. So we're not closed because we want to keep things secret, but I guess sometimes there's business that we're discussing that's of a commercial sensitivity that it's not always appropriate. And also I suppose there's things around raising expectations that quite often we may be talking about things that aren't yet set in stone. And I suppose you don't want, there's things that you have to manage, as you'll appreciate, I'm sure, when you have exempt papers. But in terms of moving forward, and I've lost my train of thought, the process of I don't want to use the word consultation, the conversations that I think we hope to start and have over the summer and beyond in the communities that I know that you will want us to be and that you represent. I think through those conversations we'll start to identify and develop relationships with people who
will want to be more involved in governance side of stuff. Does that reassure you, make sense? But like I said, I don't know what that governance might look like. I don't know. I don't want to say it will be this, because it's not my place to say that either. I think it needs to evolve and be appropriate for the town and how we see the fund being used, really. So I don't know. But I think the board, my gut feeling is the board membership as it is and the way it's structured will change.
Thank you.
Councillor Hennigan, please.
Thank you, Gemma, Vicky and team. I know how much hard work you put into this and how terrifying we must all seem as well. Yeah, I'm not sure what side of the table I should be sitting on either, actually, and I won't take up too much oxygen because I do get plenty of opportunity to sort of grill everything, so I think this is more for everybody else. But is there an opportunity for, and the thing is, the areas we're talking about are our wards, basically, and there's a lot of councillors in this room would probably itching to have quite a lot of input into how this money should be spent. And I know it's ultimately up to the board, but at least sort of consultation. So is there going to be an opportunity for us to, I don't know, brainstorm, I don't know, do something, because we had a bit of a brainstorming session at the last neighbourhood board, which was helpful. And I'm quite sure that people around this table would have quite a lot to have us to say about that as well. And the other thing is sort of when you're getting closer to formulating what the plan might be, is it possible to bring it back to CLAC so we can sort of have some sort of input there as well? Yeah, again, because it's all about the transparency, you know, that Councillor Bone mentioned, really. So, okay.
I think it's yes and yes to both of those. You're absolutely key to the conversations that we're going to start having. You know, you represent those wards. Some or all of you may well live in the areas that you represent. You'll know the people that you think should be involved in those conversations, and probably particularly the people who might not always come forward of their own volition. So I think you are all critical to that and making it a success. And I'm, you know, Gemma's in charge in terms of council procedures, but I'd be very surprised if you weren't involved in seeing and discussing, you know, plans as they start to move towards that stage of being submitted to government. So yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's partly why we're here tonight, is that this is about saying we need you and expect you to be involved, and you know, are you ready? get kind of priming your folk, I think. So yeah, thank you, Debs.
Would it be helpful if Michelle just covers our initial approach around engagement, so we can just expand on Councillor Hennigan's question?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Chair. So essentially, we do want to take a collaborative approach to engaging people with this. We're not coming from a standing start. We did do the consultation and engagement last year and had 1,100 people take part in that. So we have insight. It's really important that we are asking the right questions. We're not creating that consultation fatigue, which is why we're doing some work now around a gap analysis to understand what we know, what's missing against the criteria, and also working with stakeholders and internally as well to find out what's missing, what do we need to know. But I think a really crucial point in our engagement approach is going to be a VCSE conference, which we're going to do with Community Action Norfolk. And essentially we're holding it in July. We're bringing community groups, charities together, and we're going to engage them in this process. We're going to ask them to help us, to ask people the questions that we need to know, because they are best placed to do that. They've got the trust, they've got the connections, there's capacity funding to support them if they want to do activities around that. We're also going to be talking to them about shaping potentially a small grant scheme. And, you know, this isn't about a one-off consultation, this is long-term. So we're going to be looking at capacity building. How can we bring people, you know, develop people through this, give them the skills? We were talking about community champions, community connectors. Since this is 10 years, this isn't about a one-off engagement this summer. This is about the board has made a commitment to continue to engage, keep people at the heart of this. So that's going to be the next step. And then beyond that, we want to work with all of you, with everybody really, to get the questions out, to support you to ask the questions, to support you to have the conversations. And we want to be really transparent about how we capture that information, that people can see what people are saying. We can use it in all different formats, films, we can do pictures, you know, whatever suits people. This is about communities driving this feedback, and it's really about collaboration. It's not about, you know, the board coming in and doing the consultation and engagement. Everybody's got a role to play in it. So that's part of the reason why we're here tonight, to say, you know, how can we work together to make that happen, and how can we keep you informed and involved? And I think there is an aspiration to do a session with yourselves as well to get that insight. So and that will then feed into the plan, but it's only the beginning really of this long-term engagement with the communities in Kings Lynn.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Rust, Councillor Kempton and Councillor Jones next. So Councillor Rust.
Thank you. I think the flexibility with the list of powers is really quite exciting, because it will enable us to do things far easier and quicker than we've been able to do them before. Also, it strikes me that our Marmot Place work is perfectly and fundamentally linked with this. You know, it's not just the fact that it mentions health and well-being, work and productivity. It seems to run like a thread through it. Mark and I have had conversations about the number of empty properties that we have in the borough overall, and it's got the debt on vacant property, the Law of Property Act, where if there's a debt on a local property, we can apply that debt and then bring it back. And that might be a way that, because we're looking to bring our empty properties back into use, because we've got 1,200 at the moment, and we've got about 1,100 people waiting on our housing applications. Now, I don't know how many are specifically in Kings Lynn, but this gives us an opportunity to use that. I also thought it was exciting, the high street rental auctions. I know the creation of new footpaths is a bit sad, but, you know, for many of our residents, being able to easily access events, and it's all about healthy and active travel. So I was really excited to see these list of powers. I do want to make sure that you include Freebridge as well. And I know that registered housing providers will be a part of it, but they too collect loads and loads of data. They do a psychometric survey of some of their residents, which is really, you know, it provides them with a lot of information. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, and want to make sure that we work alongside Marmot and the work that we're doing there, so we can maximise everything that we do. Thanks for the presentation. It was really useful.
Councillor Kemp.
Yes, I welcome the broadening of the objectives and the flexibility, because I think last time there were disadvantages to the consultation because it was during lockdown. It was difficult for you to reach people. Lots of people said about one of the projects, you know, that they weren't aware of the consultation and there were issues. So I hope that we'll be looking at addressing the need in the most deprived areas. And of course, as you know, we've got the issue of the ferry infrastructure, which is really important to the town, but also about access to work and employment and school and just services for a very deprived part of the borough that happens to be just the other side of the river, called Old Lynn. It was West Lynn, but and so I know that you've got that in the long list. So I would very much like to see that taken forward, because I think the need is there, and this is exactly what these projects should be for, to support communities and new development as well.
Councillor Jones.
Will you be looking at trying to take the ABCD approach, the asset-based community development? I've done some training on it yesterday, and that seems to fit in with how you want to build this application.
So actually, I had a conversation with Rick Martin last week, and it was exactly that. So this is where this is about this collaboration and making sure we're working together. And Rick was saying about this capacity building and making sure we're developing, actually leaving a legacy as well through this engagement. And this will also feed into the board. So absolutely, that's the approach that Rick was talking about that we're going to look at taking.
Thanks for the presentation on that one. I've just got a couple of points to just clarify with yourselves. Obviously, with this being public money that, you know, we're looking to use to improve our communities. And each of us individual councillors is obviously going to be biased for our own areas. Who essentially is going to decide what money goes where?
So it is the neighbourhood board. They are the decision maker. There is definitely more of a shift to the neighbourhood board having more weight in the decision process than we have in previous. So before it was very much, for example, the town deal, it was the town board with the local authority as the accountable body, and then sign off from government. This is a much more hands-off approach from government. They're keen to devolve it and give the autonomy to the local areas to decide. We've also local authorities being partners, not in the same way that we had a kind of a shared equal decision-making responsibility within the town deal. So yeah, ultimately it will be the neighbourhood board.
Can I just add to that? And that one thing that also was made really clear at the meeting last week is that government expect to see that the list of projects that come forward are projects that reflect the priorities of the community. So there needs to be a really close match up with what we hear and then what's in that plan. So I hope that, and though I'm sure you'll all be involved in that process and will be sense checking that. So with a bit of luck, it will all come together.
Thank you. And on another question I've got, the neighbourhood board decisions, obviously I know you touched on it earlier with commercial sensitivity. Are there decision-making decisions open to public, essentially how they came to the decision? Obviously I know you mentioned weighted procedures, but and essentially if someone wanted to see the minutes of one of your meetings about how a decision's made, are they going to be published on a website, or I have split it subject to FOI? So
yeah, so we already as under the town board, but now the neighbourhood board, we have always published our minutes, our agendas, our papers. There are some papers that are exempt but become public once kind of the commercial sensitivity period has passed. So yeah, we will continue that, and as Vicky said, we will need to look at governance over the next few months in terms of how we become more transparent as a board. So I think we're at the start of being able to evolve what we've already got, but everything is already on the Vision Kings Lynn website now. So
thank you. Any other members wish to comment?
So can I just follow up on that? Because I never have to go looking for them because I get them sent to me. Where do you find the minutes? Are they on the council website or are they on
Vision Kings Lynn? Yeah,
Vision
share
Kings
the link
Lynn,
if you like with Emma, and then
right? Okay, thank you.
To everyone.
Councillor Carwell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to make an observation in relation to the powers section as well, because so many, I was interested to note in there are two areas, one about orders with regards to cleaning up areas, and also the second one connected to that fly tipping. And there are grot spots in the towns that really need attention. They're not getting it. Look at King's Reach. There's a huge area by residential area. It's disgusting. It's a hazard. And I just hope that some of this money can look at areas like that. Why should people in our communities have to deal with issues like that? So I just think it's a real opportunity here to clean up Kings Lynn, make it an attractive place to live. So I just hope that some of this money can be looked at issues around that. Thanks.
Yeah, and certainly that's through the community engagement that we plan to do with the community groups, is identifying where are their issues at the moment, and there may be some very quick wins that we can use through capacity funding or through just by using the powers that is available to local government as it stands at the moment. Some of those, so as you probably saw, I think you probably took, there's a list of powers on the website, and some of those are ones that have been applicable to local government for prior to this programme being launched. But what they've kind of helpfully done is pull everything together so that everything's in one place, so people can see these are all the powers that are available to places to use, to address their issues and challenges. Some of which we will probably have really good experience of already using and are probably already doing in some cases, and others will be new that we haven't used before, and we'll need to look at how we can resource and how we can implement some of those within the council where it is the council. Some of them are other agencies as well. So yeah, there's certainly a lot more work to do around exploring how we can really utilise the powers alongside issues in particular areas that the community comes up with as particular areas of concern for them.
Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Chair. My question is probably a bit early in the grand scheme of things, but I do want it to be to say what I want to say. So my question or my comment is about the governance, and we've got representatives from the council and the county council on the town deal boards currently, some of whom aren't representing Kings Lynn. So is it possible to put into those governance documents that will be drafted for this new neighbourhood panel that the representatives from councils are councillors that come from wards, divisions, whatever they might be after LGR, so that it's councillors in those areas that are guiding where funding should go. I'm not saying that selfishly that it should go to where I represent, but that we know what the areas here.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly there's an opportunity to do, as I said, through there is, recognition that the neighbourhood board will need to transition its representation. The government guidance has also been quite clear that they expect to have a very limited number of local authority representation. And at the moment we've got 3 borough councillors and 1 county council. One of them is Councillor Hennigan, so we've already got a ward representative on there. And obviously our leader and deputy leader are on there, but it's going to need to evolve, and obviously depending on what happens with LGR, I think there's definitely opportunity to look at that as things evolve over the next months and years ahead.
Okay, I've got Councillor Councillor Ware and Councillor Fry to speak. So Councillor Kemp.
My question is about the governance as well, because currently, as I understand it, the borough council is the accountable financial body. But under this, with the transfer, the emphasis on the neighbourhood board, who is going to underpin the bill if a project overruns? How would that work? And also looking at the capacity funding, some of these projects might be developed by the borough council. So who's responsible for allocating the spending of the capacity funding, or is the town deal board going to hire its own consultants? Because there's a kind of overflow there, isn't there, and a lack of responsibility. Could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, so ultimately agreeing the allocations of how the money is used is the neighbourhood board's decision. The local authority is still there as the accountable body, and so we will need to kind of ensure the robustness. So as we did with the town board and the town deal, we had detailed business cases to check the robustness of projects and assurance. We will still have that role to ensure that there isn't a crazy idea going off in a direction that isn't deliverable or value for money, or we have concerns around how the costs are coming up and things like that. So, but there's very much an expectation that it is a lighter touch. So there's a lot that we've still got to work through in terms of thinking how that will work going forward, because it is a big shift to where we've been from under the town deal, which was very very government heavy. It's been good, it's very robust, but obviously there is a shift in this programme. So but ultimately the allocations are with the neighbourhood board. The accountable body is the borough council to act as that assurance check, but we've got these issues, you know, these types of scenarios that it's new waters really in a way, and we're going to have to work through that as we go forward.
Just to add on that, I think at the minute with the Towns Fund, almost all the projects bar one are being delivered. The borough council is also the project deliverer, the project sponsor, and with the neighbourhood fund that might not be the case. So I suppose also then isn't there accountability and ownership with that body who will be delivering the project? They would be the ones also responsible for ensuring they keep within budget, whereas county council obviously responsible for the build of the much and the library. They are the ones, if they overspend, it sits with county. Does that also, so it could be we could have a number of different, I think with the plan for neighbourhoods, we could see quite a few different project sponsors, people delivering projects that won't just be the borough and won't just be county, and could be community and voluntary groups as an example.
Because the county has a member major projects board which oversees the projects, just for example, so they don't underrun. But obviously, if somebody else is managing them, will they still be applicable to come to the member major projects board for member scrutiny?
That's
the major project board has a set criteria in terms of what's classified as a major project. We've planned for neighbourhoods because it's split between 75% and 25% revenue. Actually, there's probably through the revenue stream, there's likely to be a lot more smaller activity-based type projects and programs that wouldn't necessarily classify as a major project and therefore be on the member major project board agenda. But there will likely to be big capital projects as well, and if the borough council is delivering them, then they would go through, the council's member major project board process if it meets that criteria. So there's going to be a mix. I think, as Vicky said, it is going to be a different. There's going to be different ways that projects are delivered compared to where we've been before.
Okay, so I've got Councillor Ware and Councillor Fry, and then I say we are running a little bit over time. So, Councillor Ware, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just a please to be included very much so in the consultation process. I am at a disadvantage in that I don't live in my ward. To me, it will be a wonderful opportunity to get to know residents more than I do now, and to help and guide and listen to the needs. So if you are organising a conference or whatever, please include an invitation for councillors, because we can add quite a lot, and I would really appreciate that involvement. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fry, and welcome to this committee.
Hello. Do I leave my finger on the whole time? So, no, you don't. Okay, good. So, obviously, the community engagement, brilliant. That's my baby, so I'm quite interested in that. And obviously, getting the stakeholders is the community to keep it going and embed it. If not, doing projects to them doesn't work. So, obviously, they're going to be part of it. So, my question is, how is it going to be measured at the other end to make sure that that is embedded and that does work? Or do we have to measure it, for finances, and are we measuring it to make sure what we're doing is the right thing?
Well, yeah, we haven't had any monitoring guidance provided by the government yet, but again, they've said they expect things to be light touch, but they've already kind of set out in the interventions the types of projects that can be supported through the fund, and so we can see what was the type of outputs that would be created by some of those interventions. I think one of the learnings that we've had from the town board is we haven't necessarily, yes, we've reported every 6 months as we're required to by government on our monitoring of our outputs and outcomes, but actually some of the softer evaluation from the start of the programme all the way to the end, we've done we've already started evaluation, for example, on the Guildhall, but that hasn't necessarily happened on some of the other projects. So I think if there's any learnings from that, we do really want to make sure that through the programme management kind of costs of the budget, of the allocation, that we do allocate for real meaningful evaluation that is continuous throughout. So we're not just reporting on, 1 square metre of public realm improved and 1 tree installed, or 10 metres of cycleway, we're actually reporting on the outcomes in a much more qualitative way. So to make sure that we are embedding it in the way, and we do have those community reflections in the evaluation, and doing that in a, whether it's, again, it's going to be part of the governance that we need to look at for the board, but maybe we do that whether it's on an annual basis or every other year, because you have to recognise that actually it takes a long time sometimes for these things to be delivered and embedded and to see the outcome. Things don't necessarily happen, within, in an instant. So I think, yeah, we certainly want to embed in valuation now and going forward.
Thank you very much. Then thank you very much for the presentation as well, and I hope members got a lot of info out of that one. So what we need, so moving on to item 9, do need to let members know that the presentation on the King's Inn Future Town Council, this has been postponed and deferred to the next meeting in September. So item 10, we need to exclusion of press and public. So I need to commit you to agree to the following.
That under section 100A Part 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act. Do all members agree?
Show of hands, please. Sorry. Agreed. Thank you. Can you turn off the live stream now, please?